All right, we are live once again with Force, a game on Expo with the legendary Mr. Troy Baker.
I'm assuming that's my camera, by the way.
A little bit.
Right, everyone's going, what is 18mm?
Don't worry
camera
about it.
class for you, everybody.
That's right. That's right.
So, man.
Get good.
No, you can't.
Ready Player
you can't.
One.
Yes, exactly.
We started prematurely.
Cold open into this, completely denying the amazing conversation that we were having about
You had
this.
to hold it back,
All
man.
of us were nerding out while Techland over here.
Was nerding out.
And I'm passionate about this. This is my two of my favorite books.
Oh, my God.
Of all time, man.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Like I started reading stuff that I didn't have to read
Yeah.
before I had to read it. You know, like I read the Odyssey when I was 10,
No doubt.
12 maybe, something like that. I was reading Robert Heinlein when I was a kid. So I grew up reading science fiction. I grew up as a kid from the 80s. So whenever I read literally a 240-page love letter to the 80s.
Absolutely is what it is,
Yeah.
man.
It's exactly what it
Yes.
is. And with today's culture right now, with the advent of Stranger Things and retro culture coming back to what it is, it's the perfect time. Perfect time.
I don't
for
want to
that to be.
blame Spielberg, but
We're
a lot
talking
of
about Ready
the
Player One,
mixing
by the
of
way,
the
people.
80s stuff was his creative decision.
It was also licensing.
That too.
That movie could never happen.
Right.
You could never.
And that's what the funny thing is. He said, I wanted to make a book that could never be made into a movie.
He said that at his speech.
Right.
And somehow-
he said the only person who could have pushed that over the
Steven
edge.
Spielberg.
Steve, who else could go into a meeting room at any studio in Hollywood
No,
and
I need to
go,
license
we're doing this?
everything that ever
Yeah.
happened in the 80s.
Yeah.
But the weird thing to me was like, so he's going to actually play Lyman, David Lyman
Yeah.
in War Games. No. It's going to be The Shining.
I know.
Yeah.
It's about the 80s.
yeah.
Shining. Because we can get The Shining. I was like, that's a 70s movie. An
interesting choice.
What do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I was like, do anything else. I am sure there's some John Hughes movie that they could
Oh
have
my
gotten
God.
the license to.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Something that's indicative of the 80s, but I was like, The Shining?
Yeah.
It's like, this is 2001. It's like, that was 1969. What are you doing?
Absolutely was. It absolutely was.
Old movie.
Yeah.
But that's me. Like, I grew up in the 80s. I grew up, I'm a kid of the 80s. I'm 42, so I've gone a little bit of the 70s. The good 70s, not the Vietnam
Right.
70s.
Right.
Like the whole disco and cocaine 70s. Straight into the 80s, which is still more cocaine.
Yeah.
And then the 90s, which is MDMA, I believe, I don't know. And CNC Music Factory. There you go, a little lesson for you. The drugs that have spanned the ages.
That's right.
That I've never done any of. And then now I'm wearing like these Jordans, right? Let me see. Like,
Let's see the Jordans.
Nailed
What we
it.
got? Okay.
Can we get a sponsorship, Nike?
I get you. Jesus, tell me about it.
right.
I went in. There's a
Troy Baker series, yeah.
There's a. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Though. There is a store in LA called Flight Club. All right, free shout out for those guys. They're for sneakerheads. Like, it feels like somebody
It's a
literally
whole culture, man, isn't
which
it?
is a culture,
Big time.
But they look like they threw up the garage door, and they have every Jordan you can imagine.
Wow.
And so I walked in. I was like, "Yo, man, I'm a dude that finally has some means and I was a kid that did not. So I'm finally getting those shoes that I want." He's like, "What do you want?" It's like, "I want OG '84 Jordans." Like, he was like, "Chicago's?" I'm like, "Yeah, man." So he goes over and they're shrink wrapped, and he pulls them down. He goes, "Here you go." I was like, "Thanks,
Factory
man."
sealed.
Wow. Yeah, dude.
Dude.
I pick him up and I was like, "How much?" Okay, bring him up. He goes, "That'll be $1,284." And I went, "No, I don't need the ones that like Mike wore. I just want the shoes." He goes like, "Yeah, man, you say you want the originals." Like, "Yeah, man, but like the knockoffs are fine for me. I'm not
Right.
trying to." And I literally said this. I was like, "Yo, man, I got a kid." It was the first time that I ever said that. I've got
I got
3-month-old.
kids
So I
to
was like, "I got a kid."
It's
I can't
diapers or Jordans,
my
right? Yeah.
like a year's worth of diapers. And he was like, "Oh, well, you can get like the reissues." I'm like, "Yeah, let's get the reissues, homie. I'm not trying to impress. I'm not trying to get."
They're like the exact same pair.
I want to
Just
wear
like-
these out of the
Literally.
store, right? Yeah.
Yeah, almost the same exact thing. He was like, "Well, these are white, not off-white." I'm like, I'm not gonna get beat up for these. Good, because that's the culture that I grew up in. He's like, "You got beat up if you had the right shoes."
No doubt. Dude.
So, dude.
Follow those tangents. So the question that you asked was, how did I forge my path?
How did you get to the point where you can afford $1,000 pair of shoes?
There we go. Nice
I will let
segue.
you know.
All right. Ben,
That's
the
some
segue
Kanye
master.
money right there, homie.
Some Yeezys.
You've done so many different characters and
I
some
have.
amazing franchises.
Yes, and some not so amazing as well. And I think that a friend of mine who's a fantastic actor, he's one of those guys, Glenn Morshower, says it's about singles and doubles. And every once in a while you get a chance to hit it out of the park, but for the most part, you're just trying to get on base. And that has been the crux of my career is I've done more Soldier A's and yelled grenade and get down than I have done characters like Joel or Brooke DeWitt or Sam in Uncharted. But the beauty is, where I started off, I was a musician, still a musician, but that's where I thought I was going to make my dent in the world. And no, the world quickly taught me that's not where you're going to make your money. But if you'll be brave enough to fail and kind of open up and go through door number 2 as opposed to door number 1, there's a really cool life that's waiting for you. And so I just started following this path and literally tripped backwards into this. I was in a studio doing my album, our band's album, and while they were cutting drums down the hall, they did car commercials.
No kidding.
And so I just like walked down there and I was like, hey, I want to do radio. They're like, hey, get out. And 2 weeks later, they said, if you still want to do this, come on down. Let's see what you can do. And I just did what I heard on the radio. Like, there's something. Doing exactly. And so then he was like, well, what does it sound like if you do this kind of thing? It was like, have you ever figured this problem in your gut? You know, whatever stupid thing.
Right.
And so people started giving me money for this. And then one thing led to another. I met one person that did this. And it's literally just been willing to make a fool out of myself.
Putting yourself out there. That's like
Yes.
the biggest thing. Showing up and putting yourself out there.
That is
right?
the one commonality when anybody says, what do I got to do to become this? It's like you have to be in the right place. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, willing to be brave enough to fail, willing enough to take a chance, and then you might not get it. But if you do that, you can't, no one's going to come by your house and go, I'm so sorry, we're casting for this thing, and we're just going door to door.
Right.
Do you happen to be interested in doing this?
Absolutely.
Nolan North famously tells the thing is like, how did you get involved in video games? It's like, they offered me a job. It's like, no one was doing this. This is the first, within the last 5 years, I think, is when people have said, how do I become a voice actor? I'm like, well, first of all, you don't. You never become a voice actor. You can become an actor that just might happen to use their voice in this.
That delineation, I'm so glad you said that. And everyone we've had a chance to sit down with, man, you're an actor, first and foremost, right? You're putting yourself out there, you're bearing your soul, you're playing a character. The voice happens to be a big part of that, right?
Sure, it's a tool that's in your toolbox.
Exactly.
But if I go in and say, I'm a voice actor, and I'm like, cool, you have no dialogue.
Yeah.
What are you then? Are you not, are you not an actor? Can you not be used? And I've had a lot of people, especially as performance capturers, become such a widely used way of executing performances within games, and it's proliferated itself. I've been like, I can't do that. It's like, you got a cool voice, but unless you can somehow find a way, another way to express that choice, that actor choice, or if you can't take direction, or if you can't, change up that voice and make it something that's a little more grounded, less cartoony or charactery, there's rapidly becoming less and less space for those kind of performances.
Have you had the opportunity to do performance capture?
Hell yeah, man. That's my bread
amazing.
and butter right there.
Love that.
Like, The Last of Us was all performance capture, so that was me and Ashley and W. Earl Brown.
Yeah.
All of us, in the soundstage in the volume, as we say, in the stupid suits.
Dude, what an opportunity. That
really
is a cinematic experience. It's not even a game. It is a cinematic experience.
But I will say that, to me, I believe it's the evolution of,
it is.
If you watch what cavemen were drawing on walls, this is the arrow, we're on the other side of the arrow where that was pointing, because everybody's trying to tell a story. Everyone's trying to convey an experience, and whether it's, I almost died killing this woolly mammoth, to I almost died being chased by clickers, like this is where that arrow is pointing to. And there's some games that I've done, like Tales from the Borderlands is one of my favorite games that I've done that was strictly a, quote, VO role, but at a stellar cast, but it was just in the booth with a mic by myself, and that was it. Then you have other games like Last of Us, Uncharted, BioShock Infinite was done
Wow.
with just Elizabeth or Courtney. Sorry, Courtney Draper and I.
And were you able to be in the same room?
Yeah. So we would
awesome.
fly out to Boston to be with Ken Levine, and I would be in a booth so they could keep me isolated. She would be in the same room with Ken, and we would really spend time workshopping the scenes, and we would go all day. It would be a.
And what was that dynamic shift like for you? Do you prefer that? Was that a huge benefit, or do you prefer
It
one
made
scenario?
sense for, this is what I love, is that a lot of developers try to go, well, performance capture is what we need to do, if it's right for your game. For BioShock, it didn't make sense. What were you gonna PCAP? This?
Right.
Because you never see my face. Well, twice you do, and looking at a mirror.
Yeah, because you are the character.
You as the player, you inhabit
First-person
Booker DeWitt,
POV, yeah.
which was a huge concern that I had. If you're a first person, silent protagonist is what
Right.
you need, because the second that something comes out of my mouth that you don't feel,
Right.
ludonarrative dissonance, now you're out of the experience.
Right.
So we were constantly trying to fight this multi-front battle, and the brilliant that Ken Levine did was a lot of Booker's emotions are read off of Elizabeth's reactions.
Wow.
And this is something that's obviously resonated with this culture, because 5 years on, we're still talking about this game. We're still talking about The Last of Us. And there have been a lot of games that have come between that. And there's been a lot of games that I think that have been incredible narrative experiences. God of War,
Oh my
dude,
God.
come on, my boy
So
That's my
Corey.
jam, man.
Oh my god.
It is, and there's one beautiful scene in there that has no dialogue. It's just, you know what I'm talking about?
Tell me which one. I mean,
Kratos and the boy are sitting there, and they're just looking at each other, and there's a whole silent conversation that happens between the two
Yeah.
of them. That moment
I know,
right
I
there
think I
is
know what
like,
you're talking
he did it. And there's an amazing cast that's in that, but it's also a lot of people, first time performance capture people, and when you do that, yes, you can get some amazing performances, but you also run the risk of having to train people how to do that. It's like if you've never, Tom Cruise his work ethic is incredible. Homie taught himself how to fly a helicopter for 2 years to be able to do his own stunts.
Yeah.
He taught himself, he like actually did the stunt driving for Days of Thunder. You don't always have the benefit of that on a game, but it's almost the same thing of trying to teach someone a skill of, I know your eyes are awesome. They won't necessarily read in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it was Gary Oldman or Bill Nighy showed up on the set of a game where they were going to do performance capture, and so they said, we're just going to get in the studio. He was like, I'm not wearing that.
Interesting. So the perception was like a roadblock for him.
I need, and these are
A costume
amazing
and-
actors. I need the costume to become the character. And they're like, well, you have to, like, this is non-negotiable. This isn't like, well, we'll see what we can do.
This is how this works. Yeah.
This is
the
how
only
this
way.
works.
Yeah.
And once he was walked through and understood that everybody else was going to be wearing this, and the reason why, then it became a thing. But every big actor that I've worked with realizes that performance capture is like breaking it down to its quintessence. It has nothing to do with your look. It has nothing to do with your build or anything else other than what you quintessentially understand about that character and what you bring to that role, and trust on the other side that the animators and the character
Trust the
models and
process,
everything
man,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Dude, so what's next? And where can people find you on social media? What's cool? What's happening with Troy Baker right now?
I'm not letting this go with the Ready Player One, man. Like
Listen.
you.
I think the higher ups are trying to.
Um,
I'll talk about this for days.
Here's what I'm super jazzed about right now. There's plenty of games coming down the pike. My buddy Nolan North and I, we started doing this thing on YouTube called Retro Replay, where we go back because the hang is what's most important to us. And this has given us a really good excuse to do this. And we go back there and we play old school retro games. Like,
I will be watching this.
it's so much fun. This week's episode, we did Contra.
Oh.
Or no,
my
we did
gosh.
Metroid this week.
That
Contra was
Samus,
last
man,
week.
She was my girl growing up.
But here's the thing. I think you'll see about 5 minutes of gameplay because it becomes this.
Yeah, I love
riffing,
that,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's just a vehicle to talk around.
Yes,
That's
it
great.
becomes the back. It's very much like comedians in cars getting coffee.
That's brilliant.
Where
Around
it's
games.
like this is a springboard, but it really, and I've learned so much. Nolan's one of my dearest friends. I've learned more about him through shooting these episodes than I have anything else. So it's Retro Replay. It's on YouTube. We do a new episode every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. and I love talking about it. It's so
I'm
much
in,
fun.
dude.
Man, on
Cool.
that
Yeah.
note,
And
too,
social media.
At Troy Baker VA on Twitter and official Troy Baker on Instas.
well, we got
I refuse to say Graham. I won't say it.
In a separate breath.
I will say Instagram, but I want to check it out on my gram.
Hit
Your
me up on those
gram.
grams.
I don't
No.
know.
We're gonna bookend this too real quickly. So
Yes.
we had the pleasure of, as I mentioned, meeting Ernie briefly
Yeah.
from Ready Player One. We got a film that's all about retro gaming. It's
Yeah.
called Max Reload and the Nether Blasters that Ernie gave his blessing and some script notes on early
Max
on.
Reloader and the what
and
is
the
it?
Nether Blasters.
And
And the Nether
Greg
Blasters.
Grunberg and Kevin Smith's in it,
Yeah.
and Marty Cole from the Karate Kid series.
Will
So,
we-
Dude,
We're
Ronnie's
retro.
in it?
Yes.
Dude,
Yeah,
Okay.
Ronnie
he's
is the
a good
man.
bud, bro.
So yeah, we
He's
will
good.
definitely be sending you early screeners of that. Would love to get your take on it, and
Hell
maybe it'll
yeah,
tie into your
dude.
show somehow. So,
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, as
for
a
sure.
fellow fanboy enthusiast.
For us too, man. That's what I
Yeah.
love is that we finally have a vehicle for us fanboys to actually like. No. It's our job now.
right.
It's a career.
To play video games.
Yes.
To buy them.
No. I'm doing research.
All right, sir. Well, you got a panel to get to, so we'll let you go.
Let's
Super
do it.
thank you for having you on the show, and this is great, man.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Troy.
Cheers.